Hey guys, it's Kurt from Iberian Pastures, and this is episode 4 of our show that we are now going to start calling When Pigs Fly, because why not? It kind of defines us. Um, and joining me here is Drew Belline, culinary director of Ford Fry. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Actually, welcome to me. Thank you for having us at Marcel here in what neighborhood is this in
West
Atlanta?
Midtown, Atlanta.
West Midtown, not to be confused with West North Midtown, the I guess kind of up and coming neighborhood here where a lot of different restaurants are popping up. And before we get into all of this amazingness that we have in front of us, can you kind of give us a little bit of background on you and how you got into cooking from the beginning?
Yeah, I started here in a chicken joint in Atlanta when I was 15 years old. I was kind of that classic story. I didn't do so well in school, so I had to take another path as opposed to regular old college. And I just started working in restaurants, and I've been doing it since I was 15. What am I? 40 now, so that's 25 years I've been working in kitchens. And it kind of took me on a journey, you know. At one point in my life, after I've been doing it for a few years, I realized that, I wanted to get serious about this, and I ended up going to culinary school in Charleston.
Okay.
Worked in some restaurants down there. Hooked up with some buddies that were headed up to New York, and after I finished school and moved up to New York in the early 2000s, and worked for a couple chefs up there, Charlie Palmer. And I worked for Tom Colicchio when he was first opening up a restaurant called Kraft in New York.
Now kind of a landmark, I guess.
Now kind of a landmark, I guess. It's been a long time. It's crazy to think about. Ended up with some cooking buddies out in Colorado for a little while, snowboarding and cooking.
So when you were at Kraft, you told me the story a couple of years ago about how that opening lineup of just chefs trying to cook in the kitchen. Who else was there under Tom Colicchio?
That was really the moment that sort of shaped my cooking career, I guess, with being in New York, being exposed to so many talented cooks in the kitchen. It was a pretty solid lineup of guys that we worked with up there. Damon Wise, he's been in New York for forever. He was down here in Atlanta for a little bit, still a really good buddy. Marco Canora was the chef de cuisine. I think he has Hearth up in New York City right now. Still one of my best friends, Josh Haviger, who is now in Nashville, started a restaurant called Cat Birdseed up there.
Yep.
And now he owns a little shop called Bastion. If anybody's ever in Nashville, I highly recommend it. Plug for Josh. David Chang was a fish
Never
cook.
Heard of him either.
Yeah, right. He was a fish cook. Kind of on his way out when I was there. There was another guy, Jonathan Bino, was the sous chef on his way out when I was coming in. I know I'm missing some people. Akhtar, he's got a couple shops up in New York. It was just the point is it was a solid crew that really shaped the foundation of technique that I learned, right? And it sticks with me to this day. It sticks with me, that simplicity that was craft, that nobody was really doing that back in the day. You had all these really kind of fancy, sort of piled high kind of dishes. Gotham City Bar and Grill was still like the big name on the block. So it was just like a really pivotal moment in my career of being exposed to all of these people that are so much more talented than I'll ever be. It was amazing, kind of eye-opening experience for me working with those guys.
So what led you back to Atlanta after that?
Oh, we ended up in Colorado, snowboarding, cooking, odd jobs, kind of enough to pay the bills, and then ran out of money. I think I was in Jackson Hole at the time. And
in a hole in Jackson Hole?
Jackson Hole, and I was like, I probably should head back and get serious about my career. So I moved back to Atlanta, had some job opportunities here, started working for a really talented lady, Ina Quatrano. Worked for her for eight-ish years. I was her chef at Keone's at Bacchanalia, Floataway Cafe. Kind of moved around her company. Was exposed to just a tremendous amount of style that she carries with her. It was just also a pivotal moment in my career. and then ended up partnering with Ford here in Atlanta, in Decatur. And we opened a restaurant called 246. We still have that restaurant up and running today. And then as Ford sort of slowly and expanded his empire through Atlanta and now the Southeast, I kind of elevated into sort of a culinary director position. I go around, I work with all the chefs here in Atlanta on menu development. So I basically just get to go around and eat now. We've now
eat
expanded.
And test. Eat and
test,
repeat.
And work with cool products like Iberian Pastures.
So when you started, how long have you been at Ford Fry?
It's been 10 years. It's been an entire decade now. It's just crazy to think about.
And so when you Charleston Culinary School, then you absorbed all of that technique and craziness in New York, and then you came back full circle to Atlanta, which is where you're from. And 10 years ago until now, I mean, what's kind of developed and happened in the food scene here in Atlanta since 10 years back? I'm sure it's been a big...
Gosh, it's been 18 years I've been back in Atlanta now. So, and I was kind of saw it when I was younger, and just, there was just the development in the city alone, right? Because I mean, Bacchanalia has now moved. It's in its third location in Atlanta. They finished a 20-year lease, kind of directly. We're filming this, and it was sort of on the other side of the camera, across the bridge. It was Bacchanalia, and where we're sitting now was just sort of a rundown building that was like they would have college rave parties over here when that was starting to be a big thing. It's just a few apartments, and it's just crazy. Like, this whole area is completely blown up. There was none of this stuff over here. Bacchanalia was the first neighborhood in the restaurant, or the first restaurant in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And just to see this sort of progression of, we had that whole kind of farm to table movement starting when I came back to Atlanta and started working for Annie, which I guess that was just sort of is now the normal thing that we source from local products from good folks. It's just been interesting. I've had a front row seat to what's happening in this city. You see that whole kind of molecular gastronomy thing kind of come and sort of go, and by which we never got caught up in that. Thank goodness. It's just like my whole career has been rooted in just solid technique and proper sourcing.
Right.
But
which is kind of like back to basics.
Yeah, you see these fads come, you see these trends sort of come and go, and it's amazing what I've seen over the 20 years that I've just been back here. So just real grateful to be a part of this tremendous scene here in Atlanta.
So my next question then would be about sourcing. So I remember we kind of went through I guess a bunch of different steps when we were talking about our farm in South Georgia. We're raising the Iberian pigs, and in the first few kind of months, I was trying to say, like, look at these awesome cuts that we're trying to recreate the Spanish butchering techniques over here, and working with local butchers in South Georgia, trying to extract all these super different ways of butchering an animal. And after I guess kind of hounding you and chasing you like any proud person would, I was like, this is awesome. And then I finally got you guys to kind of taste a little bit of all these off, I guess what here would call off cuts. Over in Spain they'd say the noble cuts, because they're kind of like the precious, like, fresh grilling meats where you only get like 3 to 4 pounds of a 350 pound animal out of. And what happened then?
So it's just funny that you brought that up, because one of the biggest things that I've seen in Atlanta, you had this explosion of restaurants back in 2000, probably 11 to 2000 till now. There's just been, the development's been tremendous, and it's like everybody got stuck in this paradigm on their menus. And I'm not saying that I wasn't guilty of this same thing as well. You go and you see this entree section on the menu, and every chef's got their double cut pork chop dish, and every chef's got their strip steak dish, and every chef's got their North Georgia trout dish, and it just gets really boring and old. And I've been on this personal kick to eliminate the double cut pork chop. I like to have a pork chop at home every once in a while too, but all of a sudden there's this amazing product that you're putting in front of me, right? Like the might have been the Secreto that I had first. But we ended up getting all of them. It was the Secreto, the Presa, Copa, forgive me if I say this, the Lagarto, and there was one more I'm forgetting.
Abanico.
And we did this beautiful tasting, and all the chefs got together and we cooked all 5 cuts and just did it super simple. Like, it's all about the meat. It's just amazing, you know, the partnership that you guys have put together down there with White Oak Pastures. You know, we're getting this product that's being produced 3 hours away from our restaurants, right? And it's got an amazing story. That's why it's just something that's really special to us, and this partnership's really special as well.
A follow-up to a great point you just made about kind of the eye-opening experience with this meat is, you know, a lot of the people that are coming into your restaurants and ordering your foods, you know, people that might have traveled here in New York, over to Europe, love dining, love, you know, experiencing good food, is like, you know, if it took you, you know, that experience to come to that realization that, okay, this is different. How are we going to try and like convince the average diner that comes into your restaurant this discovery?
That's a good question. It starts with the war on the double cut pork chop.
Step one.
My personal goal is to eliminate that. No, I'm kidding. But it's, you know, we've tried to bring in interesting cuts like this before, right? And we never had a lot of success with it. A little bit because of the quality was not the same as what this is, and because we didn't have the story, right? You know, you and I connected when we finally hooked up and we started tasting this stuff and realizing, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Plus, you know, you guys are producing it 3 hours away from the restaurant. So we brought you up. You started doing lineups with our service staff. So they had this face, this person that goes with like who's producing this amazing product, right? So for the product's amazing. You know, the education that you offered was amazing. So everybody just rallied behind this. And
I think that's probably it. Is exactly what you're saying. Is kind of like the education that I transmit to you guys and the team is kind of the story that they can then turn around and explain to your diners, is kind of like that whole journey, and like, I guess, the terroir kind of the product will hopefully convince them to get on board. So now that we've explained all of that, I am salivating. We have been doing this interview since the morning and I am starving, and I know you are too. So what do we have in front of us?
Okay, let's start over here with, I guess this is kind of an appetizer. As he called me last minute, and so we whipped up a few dishes. He said he was bringing up some of this bacon that we've had before, which is amazing. These pigs have the fat on these pigs. I mean, in some places it was like we broke down a whole pig at one point when we first started doing it. I think there was like 7 or 8 inches of fat back on top of the pig. So the bellies on these things hold so much amazing, just kind of, I guess, umami-esque nutty fat. And so we just started these shrimp. We had these, I kind of walked into the kitchen in the morning and the guys were working with these big, beautiful prawns. And I said, you know what, these are going to be great with some of the bacon. So we just really simply, lightly rendered out some of the bacon. We threw the prawns in, we threw some garlic in, and we kind of just sauteed everything. And the most important part of this dish when you're doing it is A, don't overcook the bacon. And B, you got to kind of time the garlic out so it just starts to brown a little bit and really releases that fragrant, nutty flavor. We hit it with just a little bit of wine, a little bit of white wine, something kind of dry to stop the cooking. And then we hit it with some butter, a little bit of a lot of lemon, salt, pepper, a little bit of the secret ingredient, which was handashi, just to add a little bit of pop. And then we just hit it with some parsley and thyme, and that's it. You know, like really simple. It's almost like a shrimp scampi with a lot of really delicious bacon fat in it.
Yep. And I see it all emulsified in here, and then it kind of re-separated after. So that's.
So the bacon, right when we finished cooking it, the bacon fat, when we whip the butter into it, emulsifies with the butter, which is pretty cool. It's been sitting here for a second now. Moving over here, we're in September now in Georgia, and out of the fields are starting to come some really beautiful small wintering squashes. We have 3 different squash. We have an acorn squash, a delicata squash, and an African squash. So we did kind of the same thing. We kind of dressed it with sort of a bacon fat dressing. We rendered some of the bacon in the pan. Then we just we rendered the bacon in the pan with a little bit of butter. So the butter starts to brown and you get that really beautiful nutty brown butter. And we just spooned the halfway rendered bacon and butter over the squashes. A little bit of salt, a little bit of brown sugar, a little bit of garlic, some thyme, and a little bit of sherry vinegar. And we just slow roast them for 45 minutes so that all that butter and bacon fat just seeps into the squash. And we just pull it out and garnish it with a little bit of parsley and a little bit of the toasted seeds right over the top. Like real simple. And it's just, when we're thinking about this cooking too, it's about the bacon, right? And the squash is almost a vehicle for the bacon. So we don't want to put a ton of ingredients in here. We just keep it really, really simple so we understand what we're eating. And it's just that really beautiful marriage of the bacon and the squash and the fall all kind of coming together. It's like one of my favorite times when August is finally over in Georgia, because it's awful. And it starts to cool down and you start to get some of these really cool ingredients of the fall.
Awesome. I am still starving.
And then, okay, so one of our favorite cuts.
The Thrilla in Manila.
I have a tough time choosing really between the Presa and the Secreto. 2 of my favorites. Today we were working with the Presa, and we it's a really simple technique. We went through, we made a salsa verde. In that salsa verde, it's pretty classic. We've got a little bit of anchovy, a little bit of mustard, shallot, garlic, parsley, chive, just a little bit of basil in this one too, because we just have some beautiful basil coming out of the fields right now at the end of summer. And then we just grilled some scallions. One of the things that kind of sets our salsa verde apart is that we take those same herbs and we blanch them and then shock them and then zip a little bit of it into the olive oil so it makes the olive oil bright green. Squeeze a little bit of lemon over this guy and it's good to go. For the technique on this though, we charred the Presa over coals over the wood burning grill. And then one of my favorite ways to finish is we take this smoky steak or this smoky pork and we throw it into the pan with a lot of butter and a lot of lemon, garlic, thyme, and just baste it. So then you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get all that brown butter, kind of pan roasted piece of meat, but you also get that smokiness from the coals as well. So it's just, it's how we cook our steaks here at Marcel, how we treat large pieces of meat. So you get this brown butter, kind of crunchy sear, but you still get all the smoke from the coals. And we just let it rest and we sliced it, topped it with some salsa verde and a little bit of lemon.
Amazing. I don't even know what to say anymore. Can we eat?
Yes.